Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about different types of organizing. And before I do that, I do have to acknowledge that the history of grassroots organizing is really long and really rich, and this video is barely even going to scratch the surface. So my goal is just to give you a basic framework or a broad overview of some different types of organizing, but I'm going to have to simplify some things that are complex and omit some detail. So that being said, I hope that this video serves as a starting point for learning about different types of organizing and not by any means an ending point. And I hope that you'll just understand better how to recognize different types of organizing around you and how the Activist Training Lab fits in. I'm sure there are more types and subtypes of organizing, but today I'm going to discuss 6 different types. Community organizing, which is also sometimes called structure-based or Alinsky-style organizing, mass protest, labor organizing, also known as union organizing, electoral organizing, distributed organizing, and hybrid types. Let's start with community organizing. So again, some people also call this the Alinsky School of Organizing after Saul Alinsky, who is a famous organizer from Chicago who was active in the 1930s to the 1970s. This is also sometimes called structure-based organizing. Typically, community organizing takes place at the local level, so within a neighborhood, a city, or a county, and it addresses local issues or the effects of national issues at the local level. So community organizing prioritizes setting achievable goals and empowering members of a community to work together to win concrete improvements in their quality of life. Another priority of this type of organizing is building sustainable organizations. So community organizers seek to recruit people, develop leadership, and run campaigns in ways that strengthen an organization over time and build local power. To learn more about community organizing, you might want to check out these books: Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, Collective Action for Social Change by Schutz and Marie G. Sandy, Parts of the Purpose of Power by Alicia Garza, and chapters 8 and 9 of Dreams from My Father by Barack Obama. So now let's talk about mass protest. To quote a great book called This is an Uprising by Mark and Paul Engler, mass protest is defined by unruly, broad-based disobedience, undertaken outside the confines of any formal organization. So unlike community organizing, mass protest doesn't usually operate within or seek to build durable organizations. Instead, mass protest prioritizes being disruptive enough to create a crisis for people and institutions in power, influencing widespread public opinion and shifting what the public believes is politically possible. With mass protests or acts of civil disobedience usually emerge simultaneously in multiple places in response to a deep and widespread issue. The anti-war movement of the 60s and some parts of the civil rights movement are great examples of mass protest. Other more modern examples are the movement for Black Lives in 2020 and much of the modern youth climate movement. To learn more about the differences between community organizing and mass protest, I cannot recommend This is an Uprising by Mark and Paul Engler highly enough. Walking with the Wind by John Lewis is also a great look at the civil rights movement and the ways that both mass protest and community organizing were used. The third type is labor organizing. Most people are familiar with this. So workers form unions, and then they use their collective power to get better pay, to improve working conditions, and occasionally even to get their employers to better protect the environment or the public at large. Examples of unions who have used labor organizing to great effect include United Farm Workers, SEIU, United Auto Workers. But to learn more about union organizing, I highly recommend reading anything written by Jane McAlevey. Specifically, I like her book, Raising Expectations, a lot. So even more people are familiar with this next type of organizing, which is electoral organizing. The goal here is to elect a candidate to office, and the priorities of electoral organizing include registering voters and mobilizing voters. I have heard some organizers argue that working to elect candidates is not actually a type of grassroots organizing. So some people say it doesn't build long-lasting people power, and some argue that electing new politicians doesn't meaningfully transform systems. My personal opinion is that I think politicians can sometimes use their power to create transformative change, and building movements to elect good candidates that represent the public is a type of organizing. Additionally, the tactics used in electoral campaigns, including canvassing, phone making, text banking, community meetings, one-on-one conversations, town halls, and all sorts of other tactics, fundamentally help us build a better base of power that, if done well, we can then use throughout the year to engage in community organizing and other types of campaigns. So my personal opinion on this is that electoral organizing is an important form of organizing that we should engage in conjunction with other forms of grassroots organizing. To learn more about electoral organizing, I would highly recommend reading the book Power Concedes Nothing about organizing during the 2020 elections. The final discrete type of organizing that we'll cover today is distributed organizing. So in a guide written by Blueprints for Change, they say that distributed organizing activates a network of self-starting supporters or campaigners in multiple locations. It draws on the initiative and energy of volunteer organizers to start groups and lead teams with varying degrees of autonomy. Basically, imagine a network of chapters, let's say across the US, who are working somewhat independently but with some amount of centralized coordination toward a shared goal. Examples of movements using distributed organizing include 350.org, Indivisible, and Movimiento Cosecha. A good read on electoral organizing and distributed organizing together is Rules for Revolutionaries by Zach Exley and Becky. I also would recommend We Are Indivisible by Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin. And finally, the last thing I'm going to say here is that there are hybrid campaigns or movements which combine one or more of these different types of organizing. So hybrid campaigns don't fit neatly in any of these categories. For example, in an article dissecting Sunrise Movement's theory, strategy, and structure, two of the founders described Sunrise as a mix of electoral organizing, mass protest, and distributed organizing. So my point here is that the boundaries between types of organizing are blurry and malleable, and you can often combine or mix multiple types in one organization or one campaign. So how does the Activist Training Lab video course fit in among this framework of different organizing traditions? Well, like I said in our last video, our goal is to empower people across the country, like you, to use grassroots organizing to protect and restore biodiversity and ensure that its benefits are shared equitably in your community. So we want to help you get better policies and better programs in your area to create more green spaces, to protect native plants and animals, to ensure that people of all races and classes have access to clean air, clean water, and healthy food. And in service of that goal, we have drawn mostly from the community organizing tradition or the structure-based tradition, the first one that I talked about in this video. Especially in our first two video series, the campaign planning series and the recruitment and leadership development series, we've drawn mostly from that tradition. However, we know that in order to stop the extinction crisis and actually successfully protect biodiversity, we're going to need more than just community organizing. We're also going to need the transformative and disruptive power of mass protest. We're also going to need national campaigns that use a hybrid or a distributed model. We could also really benefit from potentially collaborating or working with unions and labor organizers. And we could really use some strong biodiversity and justice champions in elected office. So we're going to need good electoral campaigns as well. And because of that, the Activist Training Lab does draw on all the different organizing traditions for inspiration at different points in our videos. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel or visit our website to get more Activist Training Lab content.